at 180 words per minute. Ready? Begin. Good morning, students. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this continuing education class this morning. Let me start with introductions. I am Bill Smith, and I am a partner in the firm. I work in the financial planning group, and I have been here nearly 16 years. I started as a clerk, and my experience is mostly with banking and financial services. I'm hoping to get to know all of you by the end of the week, and this next week is going to be very interesting for you. I'm sure it's going to be intense at times, and it also promises to be challenging, but I hope you will get to know each other and share experiences. I would encourage you to take the opportunity to get the most out of this. You should get involved with your peers, as the course has a lot of value and will help you better prepare for management in the future. It is also a really good opportunity to reach out and interact with your colleagues from around the world. Clearly, this is going to assist you in your future role as a manager and will help you prepare for the skills and knowledge you need to be promoted. Some of the information is very applicable to the work you currently do, and there will be topics that will
We are now ready to begin the testimony portion of the RPR examination, which is 5 minutes of dictation at 225 words per minute. Ready? Begin. Good morning, officer. Would you please state your name for the record?
Charles Jones.
What is your occupation, Mr. Jones?
I am a police officer.
Do you work for the local police department here in town?
That's correct.
How long have you been employed in that position?
For a little more than 11 years.
Did you work in law enforcement before starting your current employment here?
I was in the Army and worked with the military police.
Was that active duty service?
Yes, it was. I was in the Army for 8 years.
Are you originally from this area?
No, I am not. My wife grew up here. When I finished my military service, we moved here to be closer to her family.
Do you understand that I represent the plaintiff in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I know that.
And he has filed this action not only against the police department, but also against you. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Now, I understand you were on duty the evening of May 17, 2009, correct?
I was working that night, yes.
What time would you have started?
I was working the 3 to 11 shift during that summer.
What do you do at the beginning of your shift?
Following is 1 minute of practice dictation at 225 words per minute. These are the same voices you will hear on the actual test. Ready? Begin. Sir, would you state your name for the record, please?
Robert Washington.
How are you employed at the present time?
I am a police officer here in this city.
And how long have you been employed in that position?
For nearly 14 years. In fact, I will complete my 14th year in February.
What assignment do you have at this time?
Right now, I am in the patrol section. I work in the traffic division.
Do you investigate accidents involving all types of vehicles?
Yes, I have done this kind of work for quite a while.
How many accidents have you been called to investigate over that period of time?
I have never counted them, but I am sure it amounts to several hundred.
On March 6, 1999, did you have occasion to go to the scene of a collision at the corner of Highway 12 and its intersection with River Road?
That is correct. I was dispatched to an accident scene with a tractor-trailer rig.
What did you see when you arrived?
When I got there, I observed the 18-wheeler had turned over on its left side and had collided with another vehicle.
What time of day was it when you arrived?
The indication on my report is daylight.
Then let me ask this question. Do you have any independent memory of this incident?
Yes.
This is the end of the practice dictation. At this time, the Chief Examiner will press pause and make certain that all test
Builders.com. Did you see the vehicle that you were involved in the collision with at any time before the accident?
No, I didn't see it before the accident.
When is the first time you became aware of that vehicle?
When I was struck the first time.
What was the first thing that you noticed? Did you see something, hear something, or feel something?
I heard something. I heard and felt something at the time.
Where was your vehicle located at the point of impact?
In the right lane.
Do you remember about how fast you were going?
I guess about 25 miles per hour.
I suppose I should have asked you this. What kind of vehicle were you driving?
A 1990 Ford Taurus.
Is that owned by the taxi cab company, or is that one that you owned yourself?
It's owned by the person who owns the permit.
Who would that be who owns the permit?
Beth Mason. Actually, it's my equipment, but for legal reasons, it's in the name of the person who owns the cab permit.
What happened to you in the collision? What happened to your body inside your vehicle?
It threw me to the right.
Did you strike anything?
No, I didn't hit anything.
Did you lose consciousness at any time?
No, I never lost consciousness.
Did you have any cuts or scrapes?
No.
After the accident, did you have any bruises or any kind of marks on your body?
I don't think so.
Was your vehicle drivable following the accident?
Yes, I could still drive it.
Can you describe for me where the damage was sustained to your vehicle?
It was a scrape starting at the back wheel well, continuing on up until the front of the front door of the driver's side.
When you say that, was it the back part of the front door, the middle part, or the front part?
Towards the front.
I guess you really cannot tell me anything about the vehicle that you were involved in the collision with up until the accident occurred?
I can't tell you anything about it.
Were you able to exit out of your vehicle following the accident?
Yes, I could still get out of it.
Did you get out of your vehicle?
That's correct. I got out of my vehicle.
Tell me, what happened then?
I got out, and the lady who hit me continued to the end of the block, and she got out. And she was walking towards me, and the first thing I did was inquire if she was all right.
Could you describe her for me?
She appeared to be an elderly lady, I suppose about 5'2".
Was she able to respond to your questions?
Yeah, she said, "No, I'm not hurt," and she departed to go use the telephone at the car wash.
Do you know who she telephoned? Do you know if she telephoned the police?
She telephoned her son, I believe.
Did the police arrive at the accident?
Oh yes, they got there pretty quick.
About how long after the accident?
I don't know exactly. I think about at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm not sure about that.
Pretty good response time in New Orleans.
Yes, for New Orleans it was pretty good.
Did you give a statement to the police officer?
Yes, I did give a statement.
Do you recall what you told him?
You mean about the accident?
Yes, sir, about the accident you had.
Pretty much the same that I'm saying here.
Did you give your statement to the police officer separately from the lady who was involved in the accident?
Yes, I gave mine separate.
So you don't know what she said to the police officer?
I read the report, but other than that, I don't know.
Did you have any conversations with her, other than what you related to me earlier?
We might have exchanged a few more words, but I don't know exactly what they were.
Did you require any kind of emergency room treatment?
No, I didn't need any help.
What did you do after you talked to the police officer and basically the investigation by the police department was concluded?
I went home and went to bed.
Were you scheduled to get off duty at that time, or why did you go home basically?
Because I was shaken up.
Did you seek medical attention?
Yes, I did go visit a doctor.
Do you recall when you first saw a doctor?
It couldn't have been the next day. I think it was that Monday, I believe, after the weekend. I believe that was on a Friday. I think it was on that Monday.
So the accident occurred right around the weekend?
That's correct, around the weekend.
Therefore, the first time you saw a physician was the next week?
Well, 2 days later.
Who did you go see?
Dr. Montz is the physician I went to see.
Have you been treated by anyone other than Montz?
You mean treated following the accident?
Yes, sir, since the accident occurred.
No, I have not been treated since.
Let me ask you this. When you went home after the accident, did you have any kind of physical problems or complaints?
My back started to hurt, and I was still emotionally shook up.
What part of your back was hurting?
Lower, basically. I was stiff, so I'd have to say the entire back, as far as that goes.
Had your physical complaints changed any by the time you went to see the physician?
Not especially, other than it was still stiff and also hurt when I drove.
Okay, when you say it, you're speaking of your whole back. Why don't you tell me exactly what you're talking about?
Well, it was stiff, which was uncomfortable, and my lower back hurt also.
This is a mock RPR from the week 2 packet, and it does have warm-up for each segment. So, welcome to the RPR Literary Examination warm-up material. Following is 1 minute of practice dictation at 180 words per minute. This is the same voice you will hear on the actual test. Ready? Begin. Thank you for inviting me to your court reporting class this afternoon. I am delighted you did because this school has a fine reputation for turning out good reporters. A few years ago, I heard a judge say to a student, "When you say you are a court reporter, that is what you had better be." I feel certain that when you graduate from this institution, you will be able to say you are indeed a court reporter. I am going to talk to you today about building your shorthand speed because that is probably uppermost in your thoughts. And I am going to put a lot of emphasis on the way you practice because that is probably the most important habit you must learn. When you are building your shorthand speed, there are certain things you should do and certain things you should not do. Some students never reach the necessary speed because they spend too much time perfecting their system, the types of outlines they write, and not enough time perfecting their habits of practice. I sincerely hope this is the end of the practice dictation. We are now ready to begin the literary portion of the RPR examination, which is 5 minutes of dictation at 180 words per minute. Ready? Begin. I am honored to be with you, the men and women on the front line of American labor. We depend on your work. We depend on your dedication and love of our nation. That is what helps fuel our economic engines in peacetime. These same qualities help us remain safe and free in times of peril. I believe from the bottom of my heart that the working men and women of this nation built America and can build a future that will once again make us first in opportunity, first in jobs, first in trade, and indeed first in the world. We should outcompete, outproduce, and outtrade any nation. There is absolutely nothing wrong with America that cannot be mended. There aren't any limits to our future if we don't put limits on our people. The real American dream is not to get rich in material comforts, but just to have the chance to succeed, particularly for our children. It is to provide the means so that every person is given a chance to climb as high as his or her potential allows, regardless of color, race, or station in life. I want America to reach its full potential. This country can do much better than 2 or 3% growth each year. It can do much better than cities without jobs. It can do much better than cities with empty piers and shipyards. I say we can do better than to have factories running only at 70 or 80% of output. We must do better so our farmers will be able to export their crops. This nation needs to have an all-around plan for the next decade to boost exports and economic growth. It needs to have a plan that will give us millions of new jobs, bolster our manufacturing strength, and improve the quality of our products. Only then, by using the latest in technology, will we once again be the envy of the world. If we can lower interest rates, if we can lower tax rates, if we can lower trade barriers, we will expand our world trade. As we expand economic growth, our docks and piers and ships will automatically start brimming with goods again. There will be abundant jobs for all. There will be room for everyone to get ahead and move upward. But take away the growth, take away the dreams, and America surely will find itself competing for a smaller and smaller pie. I say that we cannot put America back on top of the world until we put America back to work again. We will not accomplish our goal until all of us, blue collar and white collar, black and white, labor and capital, work as a team to fight and to win the battle for world markets and economic justice. I say that our workforce plays a vital role for workers' rights. Abraham Lincoln said that capital is the fruit of labor and could not exist if labor did not exist first. Without labor, there is no capital. Good wages are to labor what profits are to capital, and we need both. We must keep in mind that people are not created for the benefit of industry, but that industry is created for the benefit of people. We must strive to set a high standard of economic justice, which means to me no inflation and a good job for each man and woman willing and able to work at a decent and good wage. I feel every citizen deserves the chance to be a homeowner and a landowner. Rather than sitting back and watching our urban areas decay, we need to help our inner cities with bold new programs that will offer tax incentives, fewer rules, and much needed seed money. Each public housing resident in this country needs to have the chance to buy his or her house or apartment at a fraction of its market value. I repeat that the issue is not black versus white. It is not capital versus labor. It is not left versus right. The issue is renewing the dream. The issue is getting America moving again, not just for some, but for all. There is nothing wrong with our great country that cannot be fixed. There aren't any limits to our future if we don't put limits on our citizens. What we need is the ladder of opportunity so that every person has the chance to climb as high as his or her potential allows. But all our efforts to restore our economy will be in vain if we do not meet another great challenge, the family. I feel we need a rebirth of respect and compassion for the dignity and sanctity of human life, both young and old, born and unborn. When you think about it, there are so many things we can give our young. We can give them a strong moral foundation and respect for authority. We can help them tell right from wrong. We can show them by our example that kindness, compassion, and generosity are the traits of a good and worthy people. Let us move to restore order in the classroom. Let us create new ways to reward our best teachers in the fields of math and science. Let us instill the lasting values of faith, honesty, and patriotism. This is the end of the RPR literary exam.
Okay, this is the RPR jury charge examination warm-up material. Following is 1 minute of practice dictation at 200 words per minute. This is the same voice you will hear on the actual test. Ready, begin. Members of the jury, the time has come for me to instruct you on the principles of law that you must follow in considering the evidence and in reaching a verdict. When you go into the jury room, remember that you must give equal weight to each principle of law. The fact that I give them in a particular order does not mean that I am placing more emphasis on some and less on the others. Take these principles as I give them in these instructions and apply that law to the evidence. Examine only the evidence that has been received during this trial. After you have discussed the evidence and after you have applied these principles of law to that evidence, you should let your sound reasoning and best judgment guide you in reaching your verdict. If any one of you has gained the impression that I have an opinion about the defendant's guilt or innocence, you must then disregard that impression. You must decide this case solely as you view the evidence. You are the sole judges of the facts, and I am the judge of the law. Keep in mind what the attorneys said in their closing arguments. This is the end of the practice dictation. We are now ready to begin the jury charge portion of the RPR examination, which is 5 minutes of dictation at 200 words per minute. Ready, begin. Members of the jury, I will now give you the instructions on the law that you must follow in considering the facts and in reaching your verdict. When you apply these instructions, keep in mind the following 2 things. First, you must consider all the instructions and apply them to the evidence. Second, you must give equal weight to each instruction. The fact that I give them in a particular order does not mean that one is more important than the others. Take the law as I give it in these instructions and apply that law to the evidence. Consider only the facts that have been received in this trial. After you have considered the facts in these instructions, you should let your soundest reason and best judgment guide you in reaching your verdict. If any one of you has the impression that I have an opinion about the defendant's guilt or innocence, you must disregard such impression. You must decide the issues of fact solely as you view the evidence. You, ladies and gentlemen, are the sole judges of the facts, and I am the judge of the law only. The district attorney has filed a complaint in this case which charges the defendant with the crime of pointing a firearm. I instruct you that a complaint is nothing more than a formal accusation and that it does not give rise to an inference of guilt. You may take it as evidence against the defendant in any way. Before you may find the defendant guilty of this crime, you must be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that the state has met its burden of proof. This means that the state must establish not only that he pointed a firearm at another person, but also that he did so intentionally. Although you cannot look into his mind to find out his intent, you may determine his intent from all the facts. You may consider anything he said or anything he did that would show his state of mind. If you are satisfied that the state has met its burden of proof, you should find the defendant guilty. But if you are not so satisfied, you must find him not guilty. When you go to the jury room to discuss this matter, you should examine the evidence with care and caution, and you should proceed with all the discrimination, reason, and prudence you have. Remember, while you are looking at the facts, that the defendant does not have to prove his innocence. The law presumes that every person who is charged with a crime is innocent when he walks into the courtroom. This presumption, moreover, stays with him throughout the trial. Therefore, if you find that the facts agree with any reasonable theory of innocence, you should find him not guilty. Before you may find him guilty, you must be satisfied not only that the state has overcome this presumption, but also that the state has done so beyond a reasonable doubt. Keep in mind that the burden of proving every fact to establish guilt is on the state. Before you may return a verdict of guilty, you must be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that he is indeed guilty. Now, this kind of doubt is not a mere suspicion that you can reach by guesswork, nor is it just an uneasy feeling that arises either from sympathy for the defendant or from a fear to return a true verdict, nor is it a barrier that you may stand behind to avoid the duty of making a decision. This kind of doubt is a rational conclusion that you arrive at based on your interpretation of the evidence and on your sound judgment and common sense. It is a state of mind that would cause a person of ordinary prudence to pause or hesitate when called on to act in the most important affairs of life. It is a doubt for which you can give a reason, and it must arise from a fair consideration of the evidence or lack of evidence. While it is your duty to give him the benefit of every reasonable doubt, you are not to search for doubt. You are to search for the truth and then give him the benefit of a reasonable doubt if one arises. It is your duty to examine the testimony carefully and to decide what bearing it has upon his guilt or innocence. You are the sole judges of the weight and the credit that you will give to each witness. In determining what weight and credit you will give to the testimony of each witness, you should take into account each person's appearance and demeanor on the witness stand and each one's interest in the result of this trial. You should also look at the clearness of their recollections, the chance they had for seeing and hearing the matters and things they testified to, and the truthfulness of what they said. Look at their possible motives for lying and add all other facts appearing in the trial, which tend either to support or to discredit their testimony. The defendant under our law is a competent witness in his own behalf, and you should not discredit what he says merely because he is charged with a crime. You should weigh what he says just as you weigh what other witnesses say. Now, members of the jury, the court, and counsel have performed their duties. Counsel have given you their arguments, and the court has given you their instructions. The time has now arrived when the great burden of reaching a just and conscientious decision in this case is to be placed on you. You will not be swayed by sympathy or fear. You will be very careful and deliberate in weighing the evidence. I charge you to keep your duty steadfastly in mind and, as upright citizens, to render a true verdict. I will submit 2 forms of verdict to you. This is the end of the RPR jury charge exam.
Let's go on to the day of this incident. Did you leave the store that morning in Sherry Stevenson's pickup?
Yes.
To go pick up these items?
Yes.
In the truck with you that day was Sherry Stevenson?
I'm not sure if she went with me or not.
If she did not go, would she give you the keys to her vehicle?
Yes.
And let you drive her vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, on this particular occasion, you do not recall if she was with you or not?
No, I don't remember. For some reason, I remember her being at the cash register helping out there.
Okay.
So possibly, because sometimes she'd go, sometimes she wouldn't. So I don't remember that day exactly if she went or not.
Okay, but if she did not go, she would give the keys to the vehicle to you?
Yeah, yes.
And you would drive her vehicle?
Yes.
Other than Mrs. Stevenson, you don't recall if Mrs. Stevenson was with you or not that day, do you? Do you recall if anyone else was with you that day?
That's why I know there was somebody else standing there, but we always had a flow of people. There was quite a few different people. I don't know on that day who was we.
Okay.
When I said earlier that there was somebody else there who could have witnessed it, I don't remember who that person was, because we had so many people going through.
Okay, when you left the store that morning to go to do the pickups,
right?
Do you recall if anybody was with you at that time?
Somebody had to be with me, but I just can't remember who.
These would be big items you were going to pick up?
Right.
And did the store provide you with some sort of hand truck or dolly to use to move
yes.
this stuff? Okay, so on the day of this incident occurring, you don't recall if you were driving Mrs. Stevenson's truck or if she was driving it?
I was probably driving it because Sherry would have me drive, even if she went along.
Okay, do you know how many stops you made that day?
Not exactly, no.
Do you know how many donations you had in the back of the truck by the time you got back to the store?
If I got back to the store, it was full.
You know, did you pick up this particular refrigerator that was involved in this incident? Did you pick it up that day?
Yes.
Other than that refrigerator, do you have any recollection of picking up any other specific items?
I believe I know we picked up some more heavy appliances. I can't remember if it was dishwashers or washers or dryers. I think there might have been another refrigerator.
Okay, do you know where you picked up this refrigerator?
No.
To your knowledge, what happened to these paper slips that you told us about that go for donations? Were they kept by the store? Were they thrown away?
They were thrown away. I usually gave out tax receipts and throw them away because usually they get mixed in with the next week's.
Okay, do you recall today what type of hand truck or dolly you had to move these appliances around with that day?
Probably just a standard. We had 2 or 3 standard hand trucks. We also had one appliance hand truck.
Okay.
I don't remember what was put on there. I wasn't moving it myself.
Okay.
But we had a silver one. It was usually the best one we had.
Okay, let's make sure we both understand what we're talking about when we say a hand truck. A back made out of metal, 2 or 3, couple of feet wide with some bars across. Down at the bottom next to the ground is a piece of metal upon which you can slide the appliance, tilt the appliance back, and then wheel it around where you want to go.
Yes.
Okay, to your recollection, did dollies or the hand trucks that you had at the store, did they have a strap that you could tie around the appliance?
One did.
Okay, and you don't know which was in use on the day of the accident?
I believe it was the silver one. It was not the appliance dolly. The appliance dolly is the one with the strap.
Okay, when you saw this occur and you yelled, stop, what was the distance between her and the refrigerator?
Not more than a foot or so.
Okay, when you were yelling stop, were you yelling meaning for Jessie to stop or for Mrs. Tunstall to stop, or perhaps both?
Probably more towards Jessie, but just yelling stop. Whoever listened worked for me.
Okay, did Jessie stop?
Yes.
Okay, did he stop before he struck Mrs. Tunstall?
He was stopping as he struck her. It wasn't a very hard impact, but they did hit.
Did you see where the refrigerator struck Mrs. Tunstall?
It looked about mid-thigh.
Okay, you're behind Jessie, so you're looking at Jessie's back as he's proceeding down front?
I was to his right, so I was further inside the store.
Okay.
He was going away from me, so I was kind of standing behind him. If he was heading east, I was heading south, but I was still probably within a couple feet of him.
But were you behind him?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, but within a couple of feet?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's what I mean. I was off to his right, so I could see in front, because I was to an angle of him.
Okay, when you first saw Mrs. Tunstall then backing into the storefront area where Jessie was pushing, was she facing south?
Yes.
And did she then just step back into that concrete walkway where Jessie was pushing the refrigerator?
Yes.
You yelled stop, Jessie was not able to stop, and the refrigerator struck Mrs. Tunstall on the thigh?
Yes.
And would that be her right thigh?
Yes.
Did you see what happened, if anything, to Mrs. Tunstall after she got hit by this refrigerator?
I saw her kind of step off to the side. She kind of bent over a little bit, and from that point on, I walked. I actually ran back over to Susan Sellers, the manager, and told her what just happened.
Mrs. Tunstall has testified that when she was struck by this refrigerator, she was knocked off balance, and to prevent herself from falling, she reached up with one of her arms and grabbed a clothing rack?
No.
Let's go on to the day of this incident.